During the federal budget, the government announced tax cuts that they're calling universal relief. But here's what they're not telling you. And in my opinion, these aren't actually tax cuts at all. They're just giving you back money that was already yours to begin with. I'm Davie Mach, a chartered accountant, and I've analysed the numbers behind these so-called tax cuts. What I found will probably make you pretty angry about how the tax system actually works in Australia. So let me break down exactly what's happening here. Who's really benefiting from these changes and why the government is painting this as helping you when the reality is very different. First, let's talk about what these Stage 3 tax cuts actually are and when they came into effect. The Stage 3 tax cuts came into effect on July 1st, 2024. Here's what's changed. Workers earning between $18,201 and $45,000 saw their tax rate drop from 19% to 16%. The 32.5% tax break threshold moved up from $120,000 to $135,000 and the rate dropped to 30%. The 37% tax bracket now applies to people earning between $135,000 and $190,000. The highest earners over $190K still pay 45%, but they benefit from the lower rates on portions of their income. So what does this mean in real dollars? A retail worker earning $65,000 is getting about $25 extra per week. A teacher on $95,000 gets around $39.50 more per week. And a doctor earning $156,000 sees an extra $71.71 each week. The government calls them universal relief, but independent analysis paints a completely different picture. Under the original Stage 3 plan, the top 1% of earners would receive a tax benefit equal to the combined benefit of the bottom 63.3%. That means most of the money goes to the people who are already doing very well. Research by the Australian Institute goes even further. They label the cuts unfair and expensive, estimating they could cost about $300 billion over a decade, with half of that going to people earning more than 180K. The analysis shows that high-income professionals and MPs would get more than $9,000 each year, while workers in hospitality, aged care, or retail would get nothing. They also point out that men would receive nearly twice as much benefit as women, and people under 25 would only get a small share of that total benefit. But here's the part that really gets me. And this is something most people don't understand about how this whole system works. When the government says they're giving you a tax cut, they're not actually giving you anything. Let me explain what that really means. Every year, there's a wage growth, typically around 3 to 5%. So your income naturally increases over time. But here's the thing, when your income goes up, you often get pushed into higher tax brackets. That's called bracket creep. So let's say you were earning $130,000 last year, and this year you're earning $136,500 because of wage growth. That extra $6,500 might push you into a higher tax bracket, meaning you're paying a higher percentage of taxes on that additional income. For that extra $6,500, you'll be paying additional $2,185 in income taxes. That's including Medicare levy. That is $42 per week. So sure, you could be that retail worker getting $25 extra per week, or that teacher getting $39.50 per week, or that doctor with an extra $72 per week due to tax cuts. But guess what? You are giving it right back to the government due to the bracket creep. Bet you didn't even know that. The government gets the benefit from this because they are collecting more taxes from you, not because you're actually better off, but just because your wages went up because of inflation. So when they announce these tax cuts, what they're really doing is just giving back some of the extra money they've been taking from you due to bracket creep. It's your money to begin with. They're making it seem like they're doing you a favor, but there's no net benefit because it was your money in the first place. Now, here's what really frustrates me about this situation. While they're making these announcements about helping everyday Australians, let's look at who's actually carrying the tax burden in this country. Large corporations like major mining companies are making billions of dollars from Australian resources and markets, but many of them are paying minimal tax because they can afford teams of tax lawyers and accountants to help them minimize their obligations. They're sending money overseas, using different offshore entities to reduce their reported profits and taking advantage of every available tax loophole. Meanwhile, individual taxpayers, people who can't afford to pay for highly trained tax lawyers, end up paying the bulk of the taxes. And the numbers prove this. Individuals pay $298 billion in taxes, which represents 51% of the ATO's total revenue. Large corporate entities pay $98 billion. Think about that for a second. Individual taxpayers are contributing 3 times more to the tax system than all the large corporations combined. And here's another angle that really gets me fired up. Australia has some of the most richest natural resources in the world. Our mining and gas industries are making absolutely massive profits from the Australian resources. But we're not collecting nearly enough taxes from these industries. There's been talk about mining taxes and resource rent taxes for years, but the implementation has been weak. In 2024, the Australian government provided around $14.5 billion in subsidies to fossil fuel producers and users. $14.5 billion. Let that sink in. That revenue should be funding these tax cuts and reducing the burden on ordinary Australians. Instead, we're told that we need to accept higher taxes or reduce services. That's money that won't be available for hospitals, aged care, disability services, or other public programs that actually help people. Look, the problem with Australians is that we get taxed quite a lot. Our tax rates are high, and most people can't afford to pay for the kind of tax planning that large corporations use. What we should really be doing is tightening up the tax system for large corporations. Make sure they're paying their fair share of profits they're making from Australian resources and markets. We should be implementing proper mining taxes and resource rent taxes that reflect the true value of what these companies are extracting from our country. And we should be closing the loopholes that allow multinational corporations to shift profits offshore and avoid paying taxes out here. So the next time you hear the government talking about the tax cuts and how they're helping you, pay close attention to what they're really doing. They may not be giving you anything, they're just giving you back some of the extra money they've been taking from the tax bracket creep and the wage growth. Meanwhile, the people and the companies who could actually afford to pay more tax are finding ways to pay less and receive government subsidies while they're at it. If you're a business owner and you want to make sure you're not paying more taxes than you legally have to, I've left the link in the description box below where you could book a strategy call with me or one of my team. We'll help you understand your options and make sure you're structured properly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.